With all the stuff that's going on in America right now with Donald Trump, he has ICE agents all over the country deporting migrants and immigrants everywhere, from Mexicans to Haitians to Dominicans. So many different groups are being fleshed out. And a lot of these groups are turning Cubans, a lot of these groups are turning to African Americans and saying that African Americans are the group that's going to save them, right? And for a long time, Black Americans, we understood the anti-Black racism that goes on in Latino culture. I would know firsthand, having a Cuban mother. I understand the things that go on the way that they look at color, right? Colorism is just horrible, right? And a lot of people don't understand why Black Americans are saying we're going to sit this one out. This is none of our business. We're not getting involved. Too many times you guys have had anti-Black racism. Whenever we did something, it was always for Black and brown. But whenever you guys do something specifically for your group and your people, and a lot of y'all look at us with disdain and look down on us, and you placate more to your Spanish ancestors, right? And you'll go around and say, well, we don't have to say that we Black. We know that our culture is Black, our music, our food, everything, but you actually have a disdain for it, and you try to whitewash it. That's why on your TV shows and your news, you promote the lighter complected ones and not the ones that look like me or darker, right? So now you're starting to have Afro-Latinos starting to speak out because we're finally, because we're separating and delineating ourselves. Now you're starting to have Afro-Latinos speak out and call it out because they've been the one enduring this the most. Check this out.
Latinos are not gonna like. Why is it that when Black people start communities to help founders or VC firms that are a focus to help Black founders, they always include us. It is always Black and Hispanic or Black and Latino or Black and brown. Literally every single community accelerator program VC firm that I know that was built with the intention of supporting more Black founders is built inclusive. Yet when Latinos build something, it is always for the Latinos only. This is for Latinos. It's never Latinos and Black people. It's never Latinos and other systemically marginalized. It's never Latinos and other immigrants. It's always Latinos, Latinas. And I will tell you, the number one thing you need in your life to be successful in anything is abundance. But the abundance mindset is something that seems to be really difficult to achieve for Latinos in the United States. There's constantly the scarcity, limited belief that is us, just us. And then we cry that no one ever supports us. The call is coming from inside the house. And let's not forget that oftentimes Latinos will be the worst enemy for another Latino, but that's a whole other topic. But I'm just so frustrated to see even more Latino-focused communities pop up that are only for Latinos, because not being inclusive hurts you guys more than anyone else ultimately. And when you see communities that do that, the us mindset, they try to rebrand it as empowering. I want you to pay attention to one thing, because that will tell you everything. Are those communities, those firms, those programs actually doing anything to move the needle for its members? Or are they actually monetizing off of the desperation of Latinos that are looking for support and community? Notice some.
The reality of being a Black Dominican is that you can literally go to a grocery store, you can go to someone like what just happened to me, and you can speak to them in Spanish the entire time, and they will respond to you in English as though their brain cannot compute that you can be Black and Latina. She was like, how are you going to pay? And I was like, yo voy a pagar con tarjeta. I'm going to pay with my card. Oh, with your card? Okay. Ma'am, I'm speaking to you in Spanish. Why are you not responding to me in the same language that I'm speaking to you? And I asked her, I was like, do you understand my Spanish? Like, is it difficult to understand? And she was like, no. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, why? No, I'm just asking. She's like, yeah, no, I'm Dominican. And I was like, yeah, me too.
I will always support African Americans in wanting to gatekeep their culture because the erasure is real. Gatekeep hip hop, gatekeep R&B, gatekeep your culture, period. As an Afro-Latina, trust me, I know firsthand the erasure is real. For context, Latino music such as reggaeton, salsa, bachata, just to name a few, are historically Black Latino music. They have their roots in Black Latinidad. And as a result, The artists that used to have the biggest impact and largest visibility in these genres were Black Latino artists. Fast forward to today, the artists with the biggest impact and the largest amount of visibility in these genres are white Latino artists. It's so bad that they have started to play in our faces. They gave J Balvin about 2 years ago Afro-Latino Music Artist of the Year award. This conquistador Cruz, this direct descendant of Christopher Columbus, accepted and was awarded Afro-Latino Music Artist of the Year award. I will never let this go. Now, I'm not saying we don't have Afro-Latinos that are very, popular today still in these music genres, as we should, but they do not have the impact nor the visibility that the white Latino artists in these genres have began to receive. It has gotten so bad that there are now Spaniards winning Latino Music Artist Awards. Spaniards. And it's honestly just so sad to see the erasure in fucking real time. Our music, we had salsa songs that would sing about, the impact of slavery in Latin America. We used to have music that would sing about and talk about the beauty of Black Latina women. None of that exists anymore for the most part. So yeah, gatekeep.
But then you get to the Afro-Latino men, and you have one brother that's from Panama, and he speaks about the divide between the darker and the lighter and the way that they're derived, right? And I've heard some Afro-Latinos say, especially in Dominican Republic, Honduras, if you're in Panama, when you start speaking Spanish, they'll say, "Oh, you're Haitian," or "Oh, you're Jamaican. Your people just came over here. You're not one of us." They've always say that. These are, I even have stories. My father's African American. I'm FBA. I was born, raised here. I wasn't raised in that culture. But I have family members that was, and I have friends that's just like me, but was raised in the Latino culture. So the same thing that we go through with W people here in this country with those folks, it's the same thing that they go through with the W more Latinos, right? They're looked down upon, right? They're marginalized. Right, it's just so much. It's to the point where sometimes, our grandmothers, your grandmothers would, don't come in here with none of them pickaninnies or none of them. They had names for dark-skinned women and dark-skinned stuff because being black during that time was persecution. You could be persecuted for that. Nobody wanted to be associated with blackness. The lighter you were, the more white acceptance you wanted because of what was going on in those times in those countries, right? So that thought process still permeates in the minds of a lot of Latino culture, right? Check this out.
So Latinos are mad at me because I expose how racist they can be. So friggin' what? Deal with it. And I didn't say all, but a lot of y'all are racist as you can't come into my comments and stand there and tell me that Latinos don't have a complex with color. Maybe you haven't experienced it with your light-skinned self, but I experienced it with my black eye. There's dating a light-skinned Latina woman and her friends say, "¿Tú le gusta moreno? ¿Por qué tú le gusta moreno?" For the same reason why you contemplated on licking both of my balls behind your friend's back. Now, I love my Latinos. I love being Latino. But I can talk about this shit because I've been through it. Anybody got a problem with it, with the family, I'm penning. We have a divide within our community, and I am not afraid to speak about it. I don't sugarcoat one rise, don't it?
Jamaica, yeah. And
was she Afro?
She's lighter. Yeah, she was, but she was lighter. Growing up, I felt very embarrassed. Even today, to be honest, talking to the producers and talking to people, every time they refer to me as Afro-Latino or Latino, I get very uncomfortable, still to this day.
It's something new.
It's very new.
Your Latino family did not accept you.
Not accept sounds deliberate. I don't think they understood what they were doing, but it was the subliminal, unconscious, internalized racism that was in them.
Do you feel like within your family, if somebody's lighter, they'll joke and be like, "Oh, because you're the darker one and I'm the lighter one," and that makes sense?
Of course. For me, playing outside as a kid was nerve-wracking because my grandma would say, "Don't go outside and don't darken up my family. Don't darken up my family. Don't darken up my family." So I would not go outside until after 5 p.m. because then the sun would be less and I still get emotional right now because you think, I'm a kid.
Yeah.
And I should not have to be thinking about not going outside
Absolutely.
and playing because I don't want to get darker so that my grandmother doesn't say a comment.
Maybe she even thought she was trying to protect you.
And that's what it was.
Trying to help you.
So Afro-Latino gets on here and states that he don't know why the other Hispanics, the Latinos are discriminating against him. Like, hey, we're both Latinos, but they're giving the ideal looking Latino more hours. They're cutting his hours. Let me play it right quick.
And I'm not gonna lie to you, the most prejudice have been the Hispanics, or Afro-Latinos just X'd out as well. Like, that shit is fucking with me really fucking bad. I'm at this site and it's like I have to beg for hours because I don't look like the picture perfect fucking Hispanic.
And I don't think they get it. Because just imagine if white Americans and black Americans, if they put us all in the same community. The only thing we have in common is that we're Americans. One group is marginalized. One group have a history of being discriminated and racially profiled and just locked out of markets just because of a different race, being of a different race. See, the Spaniards messed them up. They're like, hey, we're all one. And the whole thing about being all one, they wanted to breed out the indigenous and black people out of the gene pool. Hey, we can't discriminate against you if you no longer exist. You get it? But if you look at it, they're just excluded. Like, Latinos is one group and they're a completely different group. The Afro-Latinos and indigenous people. They're excluded from that community. I don't think they're processing it. Everything is based on race. You're sharing a community with your oppressors. And if you look at the Latin American countries, the people that's marginalized in all those countries are black and indigenous people. The proof is in the pudding.
Imagine if I, an Afro-Latina, identified as white. Unexpected, right? 28% of Afro-Latinas identified as white in a survey conducted by the Pew Research Center in 2019 and 2020. That might come as a surprise, so we wanted to do some digging for a bit more clarity. We spoke with 3 different professors to break down how this marginalized group could find belonging in the white community. And although the professors had issues with how the Pew study was conducted, they laid out a few of the top reasons why some Afro-Latina people consider themselves to be white.
And in Latin America, saying that you have a little bit of African ancestry is not the same thing as saying that you are black. And so folks may feel much more free to say, sure, I have some African descendants in my family from many years back, but they don't think of it necessarily as a racial identity.
The first thing we need to grasp is that many other countries view the concept of race differently than we do in the US. For example,
we have a one-drop rule in the United States that stems from slavery because that was part of the way that we ensured that people remained property despite the fact that they had European ancestors. In Latin America, things were not quite like that.
In order for us to understand how people come to talk about their identity, we have to know their social location, age, where they grew up, what was going on in the country. You know, in the Dominican Republic, there was a Trujillato where being and identifying as black was pretty much persecuted, right? And people still did. So we have to contextualize.
Then, we also need to consider some of the anti-blackness that has been prevalent in the Latina community for centuries, which might contribute to members wanting to distance themselves from that label.
There has been a hierarchy that whiteness and white supremacy has been one of the organizing principles of not only the United States, but all of Latin America. So there is a history of distancing yourself from a category that's considered stigmatized. So we can't just ignore that history and say, well, there's something wrong with these people because they're not identifying as black.
And their understanding of race might be even further complicated by the communities that raise them.
I know a lot of Afro-Latinx who grew up around African-American communities, so they will often identify more racially than ethnically because that's the space that they grew up in. But if you're in other places, like let's say you're in Miami, where there's in some ways a more distinct separation, then you get a different kind of set of identity.
There could be over a dozen reasons why Afro-Latina might identify as white, but the professors help boil it down to whether or not they feel they can relate to all that comes with being a part of the black community, some of the historical anti-black sentiments in Latin American countries, and their personal understanding of race, which may not match the American standard of race. So, I'll ask you again. Imagine if I identified as white.
And see, with all this racism and discrimination that Afro-Latinos experience, when you deal with Cuba, right? Cuba had Antonio Maceo. He was known as the Bronze Titan. right? He rose up in the ranks of the army, fighting against Spanish occupation and to abolish slavery within Cuba, right? He turned down peace settlements until there was a full abolishment of slavery, right? His mother is known as the mother of Cuba. Uh, Listen, we have such a strong history of anti-blackness in the Caribbean, right? But you have a lot of black people that were titans in creating and forming the culture in Latin, Spanish-speaking countries in the Caribbean, right? Then you get to Trujillo in Dominican Republic. We know what he was doing with the Parsley Massacre, where there was over 25 to 30,000 Dominicans and Haitians unalived, right? Just because they were black. He taught a whole lot of anti-black sentiments until he was assassinated. It was in 1961, if I'm not mistaken, right? So this whole thing is real goofy, man. And black people globally go through a lot, but I'm imploring for Afro-Latinos to delineate too. You guys need to separate and forge your own group, and the same way we're doing, right? And we're separating so we can have our own identity. We're not separating to the point where we said we're not associated with Afro-Latinos or other groups. We love you guys. We know there's a lot of riders over there, right? And we all need to unite. But we need to have our own identity the same way you guys need to have your own, because we have different arguments depending on where we come from. But we all still one family once we understand who we are and we're all on board, right? But until then, no, we all got to separate, right? But the Afro-Latinos wasn't finished with all the things that they go through, right? And one woman, she started bringing up LULAC and all these different organizations that they have that practice anti-black racism. Check it out.
I'm gonna name names. These are the organizations pushing to make Latino a racial category on the U.S. Census. No shock there, especially with LULAC, which has been an anti-black organization since its inception. Laleo, LULAC, and then you have the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, who have the gall to have this lie on their website. Democracy for everyone except if you're black, right? The usual. It's also funny that these organizations have been going around saying that Afro-Latinos actually support this anti-black measure when they have not met with any of these Afro-Latine organizations. So who are they talking about? And in reality, emails from the Afro-Latino Forum to these orgs have been ignored, not addressed, and dismissed, only to say that their little feelings would be hurt if they had to check white on the US Census. Mind you, no one is forcing them to check white. Also, with this measure, black Brazilians will not be counted. Also, when they did the surveys for this measure, they did not survey anyone in the Northeast, where most Afro-Latinas live. It's giving anti-black scumbag behavior. It's giving intentional, deliberate, and more of the same, which is on brand with U.S. Latino organizing anyway. We are proposing to stop this measure until the U.S. Census Committee actually has meaningful conversations with actual black Latinas, the people who would be harmed the most by this measure. But if you leave it up to non-black Latinos, they would rather exclude. These are the town halls and events that you need to be at. Share this video immediately.
When I speak to other Latinos who were born and raised in the States and they're shocked that there's black people in Latin America, I'd be so confused. But then again, can we blame those people? Because the media only shows a different type of Latinos that don't look nothing like me. And they, for some reason, refuse to show people like me in the freaking media. And I'm not saying just sprinkle a little representation here and there. It has to be a constant thing, and it has to be a conversation that we all should have so we can educate other people, other generations, older and younger, so they can know about Afro-Latinos. And understanding the diversity that exists in the Latino culture, because a lot of Hispanic and Latino people do not know this.
Not exactly sure what it means to act African, but as an Afro-Latina living in the United States, I can tell that there are some parallels between American culture and Latin American culture. One of those being taking cultural elements that started in black communities, repackaging it, stripping it from its black cultural roots, and then saying it's part of mainstream culture. In the US, we've seen this with things like African American Vernacular English, or AAVE, as well as hip hop. ends up happening is that there's a dilution of credit of the communities that birth certain things. Similarly, Afro-Latinos are responsible for reggaeton and Latin American culture. The roots of reggaeton can be traced to Jamaicans who came to Panama to work on the Panama Canal, and they brought that reggae. Father of reggaeton, El General, is an Afro-Panamanian who combined Panamanian music with the Jamaican reggae that was brought down to the canal zone. We all know that the biggest reggaeton artists right now are not Panamanian. In fact, reggaeton is associated with Puerto Rico, and I love my Boricuas. But when you have Colombian artists like J Balvin getting the Afro-Latin Artist of the Year award, that's crazy. Let's tie it back to the American thing. 2023 MTV Video Music Awards, Selena Gomez won the first Afro Beats award that they had along with Rema for Calm Down. Now, I love Calm Down, but you know he had his own version before Selena jumped on it? So a Mexican American who has been in the US, who's not Afro-Mexican, who's not even Black American, who's not African, had to be on the track for Rema to win the Afrobeats Award? This is what I mean when I say Black contributions are like overshadowed and it's stripped from its origins and other people are getting credit and we're just saying like, oh, like that's fine.
So I'll say this to my FBA brothers and sisters. Stay off those front lines. Stay resilient and what we need to do for ourselves. Other groups come here and we know how they operate. We know what they're doing. We were taught to always have a soft spot for other Black people across the diaspora. But we found out the hard way that a lot of these groups are coming here and they have anti-Black racism. They have anti-Black sentiments, right? And they come into our communities. Just think about this, right? As FBA people, right? Especially here on the East Coast. Right now, right in front of our faces, Dominicans and these other groups are coming into America and they buying up all the property in the stores. What is there going to be for you in the next 10 years? In your communities in Brooklyn, here in Philadelphia, and all these cities across America, where are you going to be? Because you don't own the community you live in. They own the community. And they have anti-Black sentiments. So we know for a fact that if it sounds crazy in America with Blacks and whites, but if you had to go work at a place, a white person would be more inclined to hire you than a Latino would. They hire their people. They don't like you. They don't want to deal. If they don't have to deal with you, they won't deal with you. I'm telling you that, right? If they had a company, they're going to hire all their own people. If you have a company, you're going to hire them because you see that they do good work for cheaper labor. I'm going to say it again. If they had their own company, you won't have no job. But if they have their own company, they're going to hire their own people. They're going to hire their own people. If you have a company, you're going to hire them over your own people. Because you're going to turn around and say your people lazy, they don't come to work, they don't do this, and they want too much money. You're going to hire them. But if they got a company, they won't hire you. And this is the way this thing goes. It comes from so many different places. And in this video today, you saw this exercise today, you saw a lot of Afro-Latinos speak in the same way we speak in this country about W folks. It's the same thing, right? And a lot of times, a lot of people got to wake up and understand what we're up against, right? What we're up against. And until you wake up and unify as a people, and we stop hurting each other, we start loving each other, we're not going to have power because I'm telling you now, we in serious trouble. Dr. Claude Anderson tried to warn us. We are in serious trouble over here in the East Coast corridor because I'm asking Black Americans, what do you own? These other groups are coming here and they're buying up everything. So where are you going to be in the next 10 years from Boston all the way down to Virginia? Where are you going to be? Because we don't own it. We don't own it. They do. They do. So while we're saying that we're delineating, we're separating ourselves, that's fair, that's fine. We need to do all that. But what do we own so that way we can maintain the communities that we live in? What do we own? These are conversations that really need to be had. And these are conversations that need to be had on a national level. But I'm going to cut this video short right here. If you made it this far in the video, hit that like button. Subscribe to Street Media TV. Leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think. And remember, I love y'all. Till the next time. Peace.